Welcome back to Room 237 as I continue my marathon of Italian horror and Giallo films. And I have another Giallo, only this time it is a Italian-Spanish co-production. It's from 1972 and it is My Dear Killer. And even though it has this Giallo collection banner on it, it's not from this box set. This is the only one I have with this banner. This is from Shriek Show. Shriek Show release. Which, I guess, What Have You Done to Solange and Spasmo are also part of that Giallo collection from Shriek Show. Now, this was directed by Tonino Valeri, who is mostly known for spaghetti westerns. He started his career as an assistant director for Sergio Leone on A Fistful of Dollars, and he actually ended his career in 1987 with I think it was a film called Shock something, but he passed away in 2016 at the age of 82. Shatterer, that was the name of his last film in 1987. This has 3 credited writers, Franco Buccieri, Roberto Leone, and Valeri himself. And it stars George Hilton, which George Hilton he's the lead detective in this. Hilton has become one of my favorite Italian actors. He is such a strong lead man in films, whether he's good guy, bad guy, either or. But also Salvo Radone, or Randoni, I believe is what it is. Mary Lou Tolo, William Berger, or Berger, Manuel Zarzo, and music by Ennio Morricone. Awesome. And yeah, it was released in 1972. This is pretty different because a lot of times I've said that Giallo, and a lot of the ones I've done, are usually someone not in law enforcement trying to solve this murder, whether because they're involved in it or they witnessed it or whatever. This movie is pretty much all police procedural. This is probably the most police procedural Giallo film I've seen that I can think of since Argento's Card Player. Granted, this is a much better film than Card Player, but I did not expect that because this image with the radial disc killing someone. This movie's known for 2 very good staged deaths. And the whole catalyst of the film being this little girl's drawing. I do know sometimes you get these detective procedural films, but I did not expect it to be to this extent. Which is fine. I don't mind. I enjoy movies where we get to see detectives do their thing. But yeah, it's mostly known for these 2 deaths. This one and then the opening one where there's a swamp dredger, or I guess you can use it for that, but it's like the big tractor with the claw bucket picking a guy up and decapitating him. But yeah, one of the confusing things in this is actually due to bad translation. The word bambina, which is Italian for little girl, was incorrectly translated to baby. So even though the young girl in this movie that was killed is 8 years old, they keep calling her a baby in this. And then there's a weird scene with a sculptor, which in Italy back then, it wasn't too weird. But seeing it now, it is kind of weird. Even if he is a sculptor. It is what it is, but okay. But yeah, and George Hilton has a great mustache because he's a detective. Um, not really sure what else to say about it. I mean, I didn't really notice anything stand outish. I mean, there were some good shots. Like this one guy is killed with these statues, where he's kind of beaten and down up against the wall, and we see the sculpture come into frame this way and hit him. I thought that was a neat shot. But and I guess Hilton was told that this kind of role did not suit him, and this was a very hard role for him to do. Or he found it challenging because I guess Valeri is a very demanding director, and it was filmed in English. Uh, Hold on, I'm just reading up on something. I guess of all the films that he had done, he would save 4 of them. This and Scorpion's Tail were among them. I would have put Strange Vice and Mrs. Ward way above it, but I don't know. It's mostly a police procedural film. It definitely feels that way more than a Giallo, but I thought it was decent. You know, it does have a good pace. It does get kind of redundant where Hilton does kind of go over all the facts again. Because basically what the movie's about opens up with this guy standing next to a swamp. And that guy was named Paradisi. Umberto Paradisi. He's standing by a swamp, and then that excavator thing comes down, picks him up. I mean, it's a cool shot from far away. We see him kind of kicking and screaming, then we just kind of see him go limp and then fall, and then we see the head kind of roll off. And then Hilton is investigating that murder. Come to find out, Paradisi is this insurance investigator who is looking into the murder of an 8-year-old girl and her father. And he pretty much had everything nailed. He had all his information except one little tiny piece. And then, now that Hilton is tracking the case, the killer is now targeting all the people that Paradisi talked to. And that could incriminate the killer. I mean, even going after Paradisi's wife in a safety deposit box, where, I mean, there is some humor in this. I feel like almost everyone that really focuses on the police department solving the murder, the peripheral inspectors are like comic relief. Like, they're cracking a lot of jokes, or they're kind of bumbling. But I did find this movie easier to follow and put the pieces together. It does get convoluted, especially when you look at the Rich family, the Maroni family, which, being a Batman fan, that's an easy name to remember. The Rich Maroni family, and figuring out that, you know, all the brothers and in-laws and some of the shady business that they're all involved in, it can get a little convoluted. But when the Paradisi's wife is killed in the safety deposit box, or at the post office rather, Hilton questions some of the people there. One lady says tall and skinny, wearing all black. Another person says short and fat, wearing all white. This one guy says wearing all gray. And that's because one of the big lines of this film is nobody knows anything. And she had this drawing, or there was a drawing in that box, and the killer killed her to get it. A drawing from the young girl Stefania. And there was like a marking on the bottom that they were able to trace to the school that she went to. And so Hilton talked to the teacher, and then the teacher was killed. That's this death, which quite a long cord this thing had. This thing's electrical, and he was able to get her like throughout the apartment. Which I don't even think he was standing by the door, so I don't know why she went and ran in the bathroom. But I mean, he gets her across the leg, the arm, and then he killed. I mean, decent kill. I mean, this isn't that thick, vibrant red paint, tomato paste blood. This is decent looking blood, and I mean, it has the right kind of spatter. I think it like sprays the wall. Decent kill. Then they realized that the drawing of the house was the house where there was a bunker where she was found with her and her father. And so Hilton questions the old guy that lives in the house. There's kind of junk everywhere. Then the bunker is up on a hill. That's where she was found. And it really is kind of a breadcrumb movie. You just kind of... But what really caught my attention was there is this scene, and you don't get this too often in Giallo, where Hilton suspects the teacher might be in danger. And the cops don't know her number to contact her. But we see the killer with POV going into a phone booth, calling her, and then he goes over, and we see in the killer's POV, she answers the door, recognizes the killer, invites the killer in, and then they sit down. She's talking to the killer in a friendly way. Of course, we don't hear the voice. It's kind of one-sided, because when the killer would respond, we cut back to the police department. So I kept thinking, okay, it's got to be someone the teacher would know. So I'm thinking someone in the girl's family. The movie does point... It does do a decent job at pointing the red herrings at pretty much everyone in the family. Especially this one uncle. I think his name was Benjamino. Beniamino, played by Alfredo Mayo. He's an elderly uncle, and this is that weird scene I was talking about. He's one of his sculptures was found at the crime scene of the teacher. So Hilton questions him about it, and this young 8 or 9-year-old girl walks up completely naked. I thought at first she was wearing like skin color underwear or whatever. And of course Hilton looks frightened. But he just kind of, the uncle just kind of shoos her away. He's like, no, run along. And when she turns around and runs away, she's completely naked. And he says that she's a model for his sculptures. I guess back then it wasn't abnormal for children to kind of have nude scenes like that. I mean, I think that was to cast suspicion on him. And I mean, he then proceeds to take the rest of these sculptures, throw them in the swamp, and we see the killer retrieve them. Even towards the end with the reveal, it's made to look like him right before the actual reveal. But, so the movie's basically just Hilton kind of restarting the case that Paradisi was doing, or to kind of follow the breadcrumbs that he vaguely left. I was kind of getting lost, because I think that the whole, there was this scene with, I thought that this other, I think it was the brother with the one hand, when he brought the father to meet the group of people with the ransom money, they made it seem like that they it uh, I have read that this is a movie that when you try to explain it, it kind of falls apart. I mean, I'm guessing they got the daughter back. I'm just gonna go into spoilers because I have to. Spoilers. If this does deviate a little bit from the Giallo formula and is more of a detective procedural. So if you like detective movies and you like George Hilton, then I think you'll definitely like it. But if you're, and I mean, he still has the black glove killer and everything. It's really, I mean, it has like 7 kills. 2, of course, happens before like the main events of the film. So, but if you find the procedural parts of a Giallo to be the most boring and slowest parts, then you may not like it, because that's basically what this movie is. But I thought it was fairly decent, but I'm going to get into spoilers. Okay, so the final piece of the puzzle is Paradisi, when he was killed, he was going to have the swamp dragged because he thought that Stefania, the little girl, must have left a clue out there. Because the only thing they found in the bunker was a nail with the shiny point. So they thought she must have scratched a message into something. Which Hilton is able to find this out because he's in bed with his girlfriend. They're having an argument. She holds a round mirror in front of him. It's like, look how tired you are. Look at the bags under your eyes. And then he has a flashback to the wall in the bunker that, around. You can tell a mirror's been there for a while. So he knew that Stefania must have scratched some sort of SOS into the mirror, threw it out the window, and Paradisi must have thought it went into the swamp. Whatever that item, unless Paradisi knew it was the mirror because he saw the marking, didn't find it outside, and thought it was in the swamp. It wasn't found because the old guy that lives in the house near the bunker, who didn't know she was in there, saw the mirror rolling down the hill. Why didn't he check up there when he saw that? I don't know. And he gave it to sort of his girlfriend that he has, who lives somewhere else. He gave it to her as a gift, I think. So Hilton went to go retrieve this mirror. And then we have sort of the noir ending when he has all the family members in the room and he's addressing the killer without saying it. He's like, you, the killer, did all of this because... And you have like the mother, the brother, the sister-in-law, both uncles or whatever. Then he goes around, he shows everyone the mirror. And I thought it was going to, their reflection. And I thought, is this going to be something stupid? Like, their reflection is going to show that it was them. But no, she did scratch something on the other side. And the way they make it seem to be the sculptor uncle was Hilton turns the mirror over and he screams and, like, moves, pulls the cord to the lights out. There's a scuffle. And hiding in behind the chair is, I think it's the guy with one hand, whether it's a brother, uncle, or whoever. Coming to find out, he did it because he was jealous of Alessandro, the girl's father, for his wealth, his position, and whatever company he had. And, Stefania was more, he had to kill her. She was a necessary pawn that had to go. And also, she knew who he was. This is where I got confused because, so basically, he went with Alessandro to give the ransom money for Stefania. He was roughed up. They took Alessandro. He lost his hand. That's why he has one hand. But then he must have hired guys to kidnap them and put them in the bunker, or it was all part of the same thing. Like, the guy wasn't supposed to go with the ransom money, and the guys beat him up, and he lost his hand anyway. It made it sound like two different events. The ransom, and then hiring someone to put the both of them in the bunker. Whichever one it is, he's responsible anyway. Also, Paradisi comes into play here because the family pretty much hired him to figure out what happened. And he, even as the killer, agreed to pay as well for Paradisi's services to see if he left any errors and to cover his tracks more. But once he killed Paradisi, he realized he just knocked down the first domino, and it led to a string of more killings. So, I mean, for such a breadcrumb movie, it does get kind of convoluted, and if you do try to break it down, it does get kind of messed up. So maybe the writing isn't the best, but even if it is more of a procedural than a Giallo, yeah, George Hilton really did a good job, and he carried this movie for sure. He definitely made it, watchable and more interesting. But I mean, I thought it was decent. I mean, as of right now, would it be a contender for my bottom 10? Maybe, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, because I really only ranted on 2 or 3 Giallo. So even my top 10, my bottom 10 Giallo is going to have ones I like. But yeah, definitely not one of my favorites, but I still thought it was decent. So with that, I hope you enjoyed this review, and stay tuned for more Italian horror and Giallo reviews. Thank you for watching.